Hey traders, Nick Shaheen here, recapping the week of September 12th for Benzinga. Eventful week, very eventful week. Tough day for the Bulls today, obviously. I say eventful week every time. I should just put it on a loop. Recapping the week, actually, let's do it via charts. Let's start with the SPY, not with Tesla. We'll get back to Tesla. The SPX, the weekly will show us that we did have a definitely red candle, but it looks like the uptrend has been broken. So now the question is, when will we find footing again? Last time it was broken with this candle right here. We meandered until it really broke one day, and then we climbed up. So are we going to stare up into it? One thing I want to use the SPY to show you something that I showed members earlier. Here's something that we don't pay attention to often enough. So this is almost the same pattern, right? But this shows that how see that upper end, we're getting distance from it. It's evident in a different, but what I wanted to point out is right here, diminishing volume. So the rip is happening on lower conviction. One can determine, just saying. Okay, so recapping the week, red week for the SPY, with all the exuberance that's lurking around. The small caps also definitely had red, and today they let down. Today's action was what I expect in the market. Nasdaq, the small caps leading down badly. The SPX, the broaders down, but not as much, and the VIX pretty high. And it was in reaction to rates, which is pretty normal. So obviously choppy Nasdaq, and tough day. Small caps, and it's just a matter of, here we had two ticks and then two more. Are we going to have two more? Are we going to revert? So the question is, are we going to revert or find footing, right? So bulls will argue, oh, we have some sort of an inverse head and shoulder, which is bullish. Prices will be up here target-wise, or which I think the bears are winning the argument, saying, oh, we've got a head and shoulder formation as opposed to an inverse going on, like book. Anyway, and I side with the bears. So, but not stubbornly so. We'll talk about that later. What happened to the Nasdaq? Let's go with the Qs. Am I here? What's going on? Qs. Apple kind of gave everybody a lift today, propped up, I should say, everybody. So the Nasdaq is still on an upward swing, although two red candles. This was an indecisive candle, and this one was definitely decisive and red. And it's tapering down. So again, I would side with the bears. But which brings me to, this is what happened this week, basically. We reacted to rates today. TNX is the 10-year Treasury, 10-year rate representation, and as soon as it comes up, it shows you big, gigantic candle. I mean, that is a big candle. Okay, this is 1 week. It's the biggest one if I'm eyeballing back. The point is, it was up 3% today, over 3%, and the TLT got clobbered, the bonds. So now the question is, will it break up from this level right here? Break out. And now we're trading inversely, right? I can put my money in the stock market, or I can put it in a safe with return on rates. So that's why they usually move inversely. And if we're paying attention to rates, they're only going up from here, in my opinion, in theory. So which brings us to next week. What do I do next week? Next week is a potentially violent week. We have 3 events. In order of importance, we have the CPI, which is inflation, and Fed Yellen. So, and then we have Alibaba, which is kind of a wash. But what's going on? The CPI is going to come out. 4 things are going to happen. Number 1 scenario. High CPI telling inflation is here, which by the way is already here, and that's bad. So markets are going to sell off. And then Yellen's going to come out and say the next day, wait, forget about it. She did that already one time, and the market bought it. And she said, no, don't worry about it. This was a blip. I'm keeping everything as is. So she's going to continue her bullishness. And that'll negate whatever sell-off we had. So the week will be a meander. That's number 1. Situation number 2, low CPI, so inflation still immeasurable, which is wrong. And we pop, and then Yellen comes out and changes her tune, becomes more hawkish like everybody expects her to, and that offsets it. So meander again. Now, situation number three, scenario number three, we have a low CPI, so inflation is still not measurably higher, and then Yellen says bullish stuff, so that will pop, the CPI will pop us, and then says not changing anything, I'm still keeping rates forever low, and then we'll pop some more, so it will be a slightly positive pop, which I will in turn short personally, unless she adds wording that I haven't heard yet. Now, the fourth situation, which is the bloodiest one, is high CPI. So inflation is here, markets are going to react badly, and Yellen comes out for some crazy reasons, decides to say some hawkish stuff, meaning bearish stuff, meaning like, oh, we're going to raise rates. We can't keep rates low forever, people. We're going to have to eventually raise them. And then the floodgates are going to open. So those are the four scenarios I have. That's why I say I'm not willing to trade it in the next week. I will trade the next week action, but outside of next week. Okay? So play it cautiously. A few stocks I'm going to pick on. CMG, I already picked on it today and I won a little bit. And I'm going to continue picking on Tesla. So CMG, I don't like this big heavyweight. So let's assume this is a stick, and this is another stick holding a heavyweight, and that weight is getting heavier. Eventually that stick is going to break. So I took a short position in Netflix, lotto style, not an investment style. I don't want to do a big, just something I don't have to cry over if I'm wrong. Similarly, Tesla, I picked on it this week. I wanted to pick on it this week and it wasn't successful, but given the indecision candles that I'm getting two times in a row, and the rising wedge-ish, still bearish to me, so I want to continue picking on it. And I still want to try to catch the knife of Priceline. I have not done it yet, but I still think that that's a big if the market stabilizes, Priceline should find footing soon enough. So how do I catch it without hurting myself? I do it via longer dated calls. If I'm this way I can put them to work if it doesn't work out. So again, eventful week. Nothing has changed. We'll just trade, except for the fact that now markets are remembering that rates can rise, and although 3% is a big rise. Next week, pretty volatile. Watch out for the CPI and how markets react. That's hurdle number one. And then the second variable is what Yellen would say and how markets will react. The combination there, I showed you 4 scenarios, and one of which will come true, but 2 of which are meander. The third is a little pop that is shortable, and the one that really concerns the bulls is the last one I mentioned, which would definitely create some wild volatility. The VIX is not tradable, but is definitely a good gauge. This week, if you had listened to me, you could have tracked the action by the VIX and